Hello, viewers. My name is Zach Hardy, and this is my review on the May. Oh, I should have put May 3rd. May 3rd, 2017 review of USW Wednesday Night Intensity. Now, just a quick thing before we get into the review, uh, get into the discussion of the show. I'd like to point out the thumbnail of this review, and when I do the severity review this upcoming Saturday, then I want you to notice the thumbnail as well. As you can see, it's very much made by myself. That own version of the intensity and severity logos, um, and I have good reason for it. As you know, I'm very in depth on seeing intensity and severity as two separate shows, and I like having both shows be treated as their own separate thing. That's why I'm glad intensity has the stage where they have the two panels on the side, and severity has the thing where they have the two stacks on the side. I like that. Um, the one thing I do want to say is I have a problem with the current severity and intensity logos because intensity's logo looks like something you'd see for severity, and severity's logo looks like something you would see for intensity. And I don't like utilizing either of those logos, so I made my own in the format of how I think the shows look for. So, with that being said, you also may notice this behind me. During the day when I record, I usually have a lot of glare from the sun because it's usually on this side of the house, or everything that's bright comes through the blinds, which ends up sucking for my camera and my webcam, because then it captures all the sunlight. You can barely see me, and it's bad enough that my glasses show the shimmer of the screen in the panes. So I hate the sunshine just as much as you, because I always have to rewatch my videos as well, just to make sure nothing slips a tongue. I don't say something that sounds like a slur, or that's like a racial slur or a homophobic slur or something like that. Um, so I try to keep my reviews and everything like that as clean as possible when it comes down. I mean, I swear a lot. Obviously, I'll swear a whole fucking shit ton, but I'm not gonna say faggot or the N word on these reviews or whatever. Usually, the only time I say faggot is during a game that I'm recording for the channel, because I have to have a specific character where I get mad. And I usually get mad during the game, so the character just says a bunch of random shit, and faggot is one of them. And I don't even say the N word in full. I just call it the N word because I don't agree with that word being utilized by anybody. So, with that being said, we can get into the review now. This is the May 3rd, 2017 edition of Wednesday Night Intensity. We are 2 weeks away from USW Octane. So that's interesting. By the way, I have my coffee here, so I may take a sips of my coffee throughout the review like this. So pay attention to that. So intensity, pretty you got the intro or whatever. You got the opening snippet package or whatever. And you want to know what I did like about it is that they update it after every single championship change, because they always have portions with the red belt champions, blue belt champions, USW tag team champions, and the USW champions. And Severity has the same thing for those four champions, and they change it ever so slightly every single championship change. So they have an updated version, and Ezarank Hills is the motherfucking closer for that opening package. Thank fucking God. I mean, before we even get into the show, I mean, the show does open with Ezarank Hills. So it's not really out of my reach to talk about this to open the show. Ezarank Hills has been passionate about what he does. He loves the pro wrestling business. He is pretty much responsible for why Benny Franklin is still in USW. Because, I mean, if you look at it this way, Benny Franklin is a tall powerhouse man. He's very talented, but he struggled to show his own personality back when USW started in 2013. And after Ezarank Hills started teaming with him, and in my opinion, made Ezarank Hills and Benny Franklin the greatest tag team in USW history. Sorry, Alex and George Martin. Sorry, Gringo and Fernandez. But in my opinion, Ezarank Hills and Benny Franklin is the greatest tag team in USW history. You look at it in this case, Ezarank Hills is great. I would trust Ezarank Hills to close out Intensity on the mic. I would trust him to just send the crowd home in a good mood. He can hold himself on the mic. He has charisma. He has personality. He just never broke through that ceiling. And I think a big reason for that was because he was such a prolific tag team performer that he never really got a fair chance in the mid cards. And he never really got a fair chance in the main event scene at all. He never got a chance at the main event scene because he was in the tag team scene. And I mean, you obviously, that whole year and a half that they were the USW tag team champions, excuse me, obviously that keeps him from doing anything really else outside of the tag team division. But after that, I thought he could have, they could have broken out into a mid card feud or a mid card, caliber thing, still as a tag team. And if that failed, they could go back to being a tag team. But I mean, I I'm very happy that Ezarank Hills is getting this opportunity. Um, I mean, I must say it's kind of annoying. It was kind of annoying at first, knowing that Derek Carter dropped the USW title to Ezarank Hills at Call to Greatness instead of James or Prophecy or Anarchy or Ash or anybody else. Because, I feel like some other people could have deserve that push a little bit more. I feel like, I mean, James has as much charisma and potential as Ezarank Hills does, but James has, he's in this position where management is kind of focusing on him as on a mid card, feud type thing. So he's going to be in the mid cards for a while. But James, because of management, has a hard time breaking out into more than a main event, more than a mid carder. Anarchy is obvious. James, Anarchy, Ash, Prophecy, uh, Dwayne Porter, Dustin Raymond. Obviously, Dustin Raymond should be a main event player if he ever comes back. Those guys are well deserving of a main event push. The problem is they are such mid card. Management looks at them as the cornerstones of the mid card, and so until there are more mid card players brought up to run the mid card division, Anarchy, Ash, Prophecy, etc., James are going to be the top of the mid card and not really get anywhere else because they need to strengthen the mid card. Ezarank Hills, at first it was disappointing that he was the one that got the rub, but I'm actually I'm kind of okay with it. Um, overall, Ezarank Hills again has personality. He has a charisma. In fact, he has the ability to talk on the mic and go in the ring. He can carry a match. He can perform, at the highest caliber, and he can get the crowd behind him. He's got this way about him that can make him successful in the long run. And I compare the Ezarank Hills push to the Jinder Mahal push. The only thing different between the Ezarank Hills and Jinder Mahal push is that Ezarank Hills is much more able of being a main event caliber talent on his own, because of what he's done on his own. Jinder Mahal has the character of, the anti-American. I hate everybody. I'm a better educated, performer than all of you, or I'm a better educated person than all of you. I have a higher vocabulary. I have a better way of thinking than you. Ezarank Hills is just, he's a performer that loves wrestling, and that's great. And I thought that, at the beginning it was kind of annoying that he beat that he beat Derek Carter for the title, but now I'm okay with it because Ezarank Hills has the opportunity to be one of the biggest faces in USW once he branches out on his own. And I think one of the biggest faces, or potential biggest faces, benefits a lot from beating Derek Carter, who is pretty much USW's biggest heel. But anyway, aside from the opening spiel, whatever, again, I'm happy that Ezarank Hills closes out the opening snippet of the show because the only performers that have closed out the opening snippet of Intensity were myself for a long portion of time, and then Cannon for a short portion of time, and Majigeta all the way at the beginning, and Derek Carter. So Ezarank Hills is like, I may be missing a couple people, but Ezarank Hills, to my knowledge, is like the fifth person to close out the Intensity credits, and he's actually, I think, the first person to do it that wasn't from WOW. So interesting. Anyway, we get to the opener of the show after the intro, or whatever, and the commentators talk about themselves, or whatever. Kyle Reese Jr., commissioner of Wednesday Night Intensity, comes out and pretty much does a whole spiel. USW is an opportunity for guys to get a higher level of exposure in pro wrestling than they would in the bingo halls, and USW gifts their performers opportunities, and it's up to the performers on how they're going to utilize that opportunity and whether they're going to pass or fail. And then Ezarank Hills walked into Call to Greatness with the opportunity, and he succeeded expectations dramatically. Um, and he pretty much did the whole praise of Ezarank Hills. He was really trying to find his groove in 2013, and then he made this tag team. And then he got a chance at the main event scene and came short. He focused on the tag team division, and once he had the opportunity, he said, "I'm not going to let this one slip away too," and he ran with it. So he announces Ezarank Hills as the new USW champion and the new face of Intensity. Which obviously you would assume gets on the nerves of Derek Carter. So Ezarank Hills walks out, and he walks out with Franklin and the Benny Franklin and the USW Championship. He gets in the ring. He thanks the crowd for being behind him. They cheer. They're happy. They're chanting, "You deserve it," obviously, and he's pretty much going down the thanks. He thanks Derek Carter. He thanks Benny Franklin. He thanks Indigo Child, Chain Reaction, Prophecy, and he thanks me at one point. Anarchy, James, and all the guys that he's performed against over the past couple of years, and that he said, "You know what? I do, even though I may deserve it based off of what you guys are saying, you deserve a champion that actually cares about the company in itself, and will hold the title and make it mean something." And Derek Carter obviously doesn't take too happy to that. He comes out a little later, but before he comes out, Benny Franklin grabs a microphone and pretty much reminds us, Rank Hills, that even though the crowd was behind him all this time, and that guys like myself, Derek Carter, James Prophecy, and himself, and Benny Franklin himself were helped Ezarank Hills to this point. Ezarank Hills is the one mainly responsible for being where he is now. His passion in pro wrestling is what led him to being the top dog on Intensity now, and he wants him to run with it. So Derek Carter obviously then walks out afterwards and announces that he's going to be utilizing his rematch for the USW Championship in 2 weeks at Octane, as you would expect. So Carter goes down pretty much, piping on how Ezarank Hills is like the prototypical mid-Carter turned main eventer. He's still got to find his spot in the main event scene, and it's hard to do that when he's fighting an established main eventer. And he goes down the whole thing, and then Ezarank Hills pretty much looks around, looking at Carter, looking at the fans, looking at Franklin, looking at Kyle Reese, and Ezarank Hills pretty much gets on the mic, pipes into him, and tells him, "You know what? No matter what it will be, he's ready to prove that he's the main guy at the top of Intensity. He deserves this main event spot. He deserves to be able to branch out and do his own thing, and he has people behind him. He has the support, and it doesn't matter who he's competing against. He's going to bring out the best in him every single time he steps into the ring." So Carter obviously not too happy about that, and he ends the whole promo segment by talking about, what? It doesn't matter if you're utilizing your rematch in 2 weeks at an Octane or next week or tonight. It doesn't matter when, where, how, why, what match it'll be. He's going to be ready. He will defend it no matter what, and he will give it his goddamn all to walk out, as still the champion. And then he just drops the mic and walks out. So Carter then stares a hole down to him while he's walking up the ramp with the USW title. So pretty strong way to open up Intensity. I thought that was an interesting little way of establishing Ezarank Hills as a worthy opponent, especially considering you only have 2 weeks to really build that up. Anyway, we get into the first match, and it is Tyreek Carver and Blue Belt champion Philip Akron. Or I'm sorry, no, Tyreek Carver with Blue Belt champion Philip Akron beating Gringo. Excuse me, sorry. The match wasn't bad. It was pretty much just a way of making another Philip Akron versus Gringo match, but with Tyreek Carver instead of Philip Akron, so that way I guess they can have a rematch or whatever. But whatever. Wasn't bad. Tyreek Carver's he's one of those powerhouse technical wrestlers that you would expect to be like one of those enforcers or whatever, but could also hold his own in the ring. So after the match, after Tyreek Carver beats Gringo, Washington runs out. and just starts attacking from the background at ringside while Carver's distracted by celebrating with his victory. And then he hits the monument, which is pretty much like Wade Barrett's wasteland. It's an overhead toss, and pretty much hits the monument through the announce table, commentator's table, and then gets over the barricade and runs up the stairs or whatever. Pretty much proving his point after he beat Dwayne. I think it was Dwayne Porter at Called Greatness 12 this past week. So or this past Sunday. So yeah. We get into the backstage area, and it is an interview by Roseline with the new red belt champion, Ash. She pretty much asks Ash, the whole thing about, Weiler's going to be putting in his rematch. It's pretty much a guarantee. Everybody tends to do that. What is your plan of attack now? And he pretty much says, well, Weiler's a crafty dude. He knows what he's doing. He's got plans, up the ass and up his sleeve, and he's willing to do whatever and whatever wherever to get what he wants. So he just pretty much goes, I go into intensity. I'm sorry, I go into Octane with the same plan in mind. Don't get intimidated by his games. It's just the smoke and mirrors. So I thought that was interesting. I mean, it kind of played down Weiler's character a little bit, but I mean, it showed Ash as a man who isn't going to be distracted or disturbed by Weiler's games. Because, I mean, you notice it. USW is not like one of those comic book wrestling type things. It's a wrestling promotion based around real performers. There's very, very, very few gimmicks that have walked into USW's doors and has worked. So it's just a bunch of performers with their own personality, and so it's based off of personality and character instead of gimmick, which I like. Weiler's one of those few gimmicks that has worked long term. Obviously, hasn't shown him the most success, but he's had a taste of success with it. But as of all things, he's not a monster, and Ash is pretty much realizing that, which kind of dulls down Weiler's character as a performer and makes him just seem like another man who's pretending to be a dangerous threat. But at the same time, it shows Ash and his character being resilient. So maybe this was not meant to be as impactful as a segment. It was just meant to further the feud. They only have 2 hours on intensity and severity, so you put in as much book time as possible. I mean, it strengthens Ash as somebody who isn't scared of what Weiler will or could do. So I'm not too ashamed. I'm not too mad at it, obviously. Obviously, I mean, Weiler could have been like, hey, I'm just going to try not to get intimidated. He's a scary dude or whatever. And that could have played into Weiler's character, but to each his own. I mean, Weiler's been called, not a threat for months now, so it's not like this is going to do too much bad to Weiler that, than he's already had done to him. So, I mean, I don't mind it. I mean, Ash has never really been afraid of anybody. He had like a 9-month-long feud with Anarchy for the Blue Belt title and was never scared to go into battle. He was never scared to go into battle against Anarchy, no matter what kind of tricks he pulled out of his book. So, just further developing. Second match, I believe. Yeah, second match. And it's the number 1 contenders match for the USW Tag Team Championships. It is Andrew Morris and Andrew Palmer against the Stargazers. And personally, in my opinion, this was the best match so far on Intensity. The Stargazers really kind of why USW brought them in the first place. They do work really well together. I think this is where they really got to gel and really got to formulate into a team that fans can actually look at and go, yeah, cool team, I guess. About Andrew Morris and Andrew Palmer, winning this match with the Stargazers, I feel like they had the opportunity to have from Call to Greatness 12, but who knows? Andrew Morris and Andrew Palmer, though, were given a lot more opportunity to shine, and they played into the crowd's, reactions pretty well. So I feel like maybe this could be a way of getting a charismatic tag team, higher up in the ranks. I mean, this is the same thing that happened to Jack Ramsey and Austin Cole. They were pretty much put together because they had similar wrestling styles and they gelled. They became an interesting tag team. They won the titles and they became dominant. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe this is what's going to happen with Andrew Morris and Andrew Palmer. I don't know, but yeah, whatever. Um, so Andrew Morris and Andrew Palmer win. They beat the Stargazers, and Jack Ramsey and Austin Cole pretty much just walk down after the match and go, this is a joke about how Andrew Morris and Andrew Palmer are nothing more than a glorified jobbing tag team. So they're probably going to bite it in less than 5 minutes, or whatever. And I talk about it's going to be easy. It's a simple match against. It's like another intensity match, and they walk into the ring to pretty much just confront Morris and Palmer, and both men kick each other, or I'm sorry, both men kick Ramsey and Cole in the face, and they retreat with their titles. Guess they didn't expect that. So Andrew Morris and Andrew Palmer trying to, I guess, set their ground. Um, Third match, Indigo Child beats Samuel North. Don't know what the purpose for this match was. Samuel North actually taps out to the armbar. Indigo Child wins. Anything else good to happen in the match? Not really. It was a simple match, I guess. Samuel North gets up, shakes Indigo Child's hand, and they both get ready to leave before they get blindsided by a big guy in a hooded sweatshirt and jeans. He drops them both with a backstabber and lifts off his sweatshirt and just, I'm sorry, pretty much just, I guess, I don't know, lifts up his sweatshirt and yeah, I don't know, and just walks out of the ring. You don't know who it is. I don't know if he had a mask on or face paint or something. He had something on, but it was weird. It was really weird. Sammy North, I feel, has retreated as of a couple months, and Indigo Child has definitely retreated as well. Maybe it'll be a 2-on-1 match. I don't know. I don't know who the guy in the hooded sweatshirt is, but I guess we'll find out at some point. So we get into an in-ring promo. This is my favorite part of the night. James walks out, talks, gets a microphone, goes, you know what? I'm proud to have been in this company for so long and to have done and established myself as a performer in this company. It pretty much goes on to say he's taken himself as a threat to others in the ring, and he thought that he could back up that statement by beating Morbid. And he thought he was such a challenge, and he didn't live up to being a challenge. He wanted to walk out, congratulate Morbid, tell me he was humbled to work with him, and wage war with him. And he thanked the crowd and everything like that. The crowd gets up on their feet and starts cheering, and then Morbid's music hits. He walks down to the ring, grabs a microphone, and tells James that he was every bit of a challenge that he established himself to be. He gave him a run for his money. Pretty much goes on to talk about James' matches with Cannon and Derek Carter, Western Light, Majigata, myself, Zach Hardy. I got mentioned a lot on this show. Deja Vu, Verse 9, and many others, and tells him that he never earned a bigger win that night in his entire career, which I kind of feel as a fucking stab in the back, because I've fought him before and he's beaten me once before, but still, I'm just kidding. And he pretty much he goes on to say, I've never worked harder for a win in my life than I have against you. And he tells James that it was his honor to work with such a devoted performer to the industry, and shakes his hand and tells him that he has every bit of what it takes to be a world champion, and then tells James to never forget that, and leaves the ring as James' music plays, and Morbid walks up the ramp. And James just looks around at the crowd, and the crowd is giving him a standing ovation, and then he just nods his head a bit, and then he walks back to the backstage area. and I like that. It was subtle, it was sweet, it was moving, and it had that charm to it. That kind of, even though Morbid won, and I was skeptical that this would happen. I was skeptical that they would pull it off, but Morbid won, and he still managed to put James over on Wednesday Night Intensity. So, uh, yeah, there's that. Um, we get a backstage interview again with Roseline and the new number one contenders for the USW Tag Team Champions. Um, they asked one question. I think it was seeing how little Austin Cole and Jack Ramsey took them as a threat to the tag team titles. What is the motivation of the match at Octane? And they pretty much just said, we've done things unconventionally our entire lives. We are used to this, and whatever. We get into the fourth match. It is the main event of the evening, and it is Cannon and Weiler beating Alexander Rotten and Dwayne Porter. Not a bad match. Cannon and Weiler walk away victorious. Dwayne Porter still sits in the ring. He looks at the fallen Alexander Rotten, and then gets up and starts stomping away at him in aggression, and pretty much hits him with a porthole and walks away. So Dwayne Porter versus Alexander Rotten is next up. Great. Heel on heel. Perfect. So that's that. And then we get into an ending segment. Derek Carter walks out. Pretty much cuts a shoot promo, I guess. I don't know if it's a shoot promo. There have been a few of those in USW, but this may have been just a character, an in-character shoot promo. He gets a mic talking about. He pretty much goes on about Ezarank Hills as the face of Intensity. He mentions my quote. Jesus Christ, how many times did I get mentioned on this show? 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 times. I've been mentioned 4 or 5 times on the show. Awesome. And he talks about my quote that I had against Ezarank Hills back in November 2014, and about Hills' girlfriend not being able to please her, and more about Hills and Franklin being pretty much like brothers outside of the ring. He goes on about how Ezarank Hills has been he's nothing more than a glorified tag team performer. He is a mid-carder living in a main eventer's shoes, and he's going to learn very quickly how it feels to be, put in his place. He doesn't have enough character or charisma to lead the company. He actually goes on to say, "Hey, I mean, at the same time, I've established myself in this company. You've done nothing more than lose." And I hope Derek Carter doesn't get in trouble for this, but you lost to someone who was nothing more than just a pothead and a junkie in the Bulletproof tournament. And that if you are not familiar with earlier USW, there was the guy on the roster named Rush, and in 2014 there was this Bulletproof series thing. It was like the Bound for Glory series in TNA. You'd win a championship shot of your choice at Bulletproof for the year. Ezarank Hills was in it at one point, and he lost to Rush. And for a long period of time, for a number of weeks, Rush was, leading in points in the Bulletproof series, and then he disappeared. And I didn't find out for about a day or two that Rush was fired from the company because he was found to have, some sort of strong drug, performance enhancing drug, a PED in his system, and at the same time he was found with methamphetamine in his gym bag that he had in his locker room. So somebody ended up tripped over his bag or whatever, and pretty much heard rattling or whatever, and they looked into the bag. I don't know what happened. I think they kicked over one of his medication bottles, and they looked in his bag and it's like, oh, whatever. I guess they looked back in it and they saw some drug, so they contacted the management of USW and hey, you might want to check out his bag. I know it may be against the rules or whatever to go into his private property, but I think you need to see this. And they looked at it and they were like, that is something that we are going to talk to him, and I guess I only heard the entire story like a year ago because I was talking to Mashigeta when I was in Bridgeport, and we were just discussing what was happening. I mentioned Rush, and he pretty much told me the entire story that I hadn't heard of at the beginning. It was pretty much like a delved down story that I had heard. So he pretty much told me once he got to the back, they were fucking furious. They started screaming at him. They were like, "This is not only not allowed on the premises, but it is not allowed in your system." And they gave him a drug test right away, and they fired his ass. They not only kicked him out of the building when he showed up for work like a week later, but they didn't contact him to tell him he failed. He was just not allowed in the building, and he was given his walking papers 2 weeks later, 2 weeks after that situation. So nobody heard from Rush again. He was done. He was gone from the company. He was pretty. Rush is pretty much the Chris Benoit of USW. He is not allowed to be talked about in the company on air. Obviously, you can discuss it backstage. I talked to Kyle Reese about it maybe 9 or 10 months ago. I was like, I mean, I'd heard Majika told me like the whole story about the whole thing with Rush. And he was like, and he answered me in completion to all my questions, but he sounded like so depressed or whatever. And I brought it up to him, and he was like, I just it's hard when you have somebody that you try to build up because he was talented, but it's hard. He goes, it's hard when you try to build somebody up and they don't care about what you've done for them. They're not grateful for it. They don't care about the opportunities you've given them. They squander it away, and when the consequences come, it's not only something that they have to deal with, but it's something that the Punisher has to deal with as well, because he pretty much gave his faith into Rush. Kyle Reese has had a history because Kyle Reese Sr., his father, was the one that ran Whacked Out Wrestling for a couple of years, and when he got into a more managerial role over the company, because he was, I guess, studying for this kind of like managerial stuff, he pretty much said, "Hey, Dad, I feel like this guy has a lot of potential. I'm Kyle Reese put potential in me back in Whacked Out Wrestling, which is why I got the push that I had." And he said the same thing to his father about Rush, and he pretty much he told me he had to apologize to his father. He was wrong, and his father realized it's one of the only mistakes he had made. It doesn't make him a bad person, just maybe he was a little too gullible to not see what was actually happening behind the scenes. And yeah, I gave you too much of a definition of Rush, but anyway, Rush is not allowed to be talked about on air in USW, and Derek Carter hinted to it. It didn't really get a pop out of the Pennsylvania crowd because this was a whole Connecticut situation when they were still in Connecticut. So Pennsylvania didn't really have too much information on it. But from what I heard from Cannon or Zachariah O'Leary, Kyle Reese told him, he was stern. He was like, "Do not mention his name on air again. We do not need people going about and trying to find out more about him." So I don't think Derek Carter got in trouble, but he definitely did get talked to. And anyway, on to it. He finishes the promo by telling Ezarank that he's not the only one gunning for him now. Even the closest people to him are no longer trustworthy. He's got a target on his back, and pretty much cites that Derek Carter is after him. The mid-carders are after him. The main eventers are after him. Management is going to be on his ass, and Benny Franklin might turn on him as well. So I guess this is Derek Carter laying down the framework for Ezarank and for Benny Franklin to turn on Ezarank or Ezarank to turn on Benny Franklin, however it works. And he tells him to watch closely and walks out of the ring, drops the microphone, and walks up the ramp, and that ends the show. So overall, intensity was a little put together. It didn't fall flat, but it wasn't the most interesting thing I've ever seen. But I did enjoy the show, and I thought it was very enjoyable to watch. And I'm glad I got to review it. So yeah, there's that. If I had to give it something out of 5 stars, I'd give it a 3 out of 5 stars. It was a decent after show to call it greatness. So whatever. I hope Severity does better. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching. That was my review on the May 3rd, 2017 edition of USW Wednesday Night Intensity. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Like, comment, and subscribe for more. I'm Zach Hardy. Signing off.